now we are moving into the second part, namely Norwegian economy and today's market. And then we are so lucky that we have the chief economist of the largest Nordic bank, Nordea, here today. And he arrived this night to Moscow, and Steinar Juel, he was also presenting Norwegian economy during also the business forum in December. So it seems like we have some kind of tradition, Steinar. And he is one of the leading chief economists in Norway. You know, you can read about his statements in newspapers every day if you want to. So these guys are knowledgeable, and he is then now presenting Norwegian economy because we, as you, are suffering under the falling oil and gas prices. So we have much in common. Steinar Juel, the floor is yours. Status and perspectives for the Norwegian economy.
Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me here. It's a pleasure to meet you. As Jarle mentioned, Russia and Norway have something in common also here, related to the oil price, which has declined and which is hitting the economy quite seriously. It's hitting the Russian economy much more than the Norwegian one, and I should try to explore a bit more about how it's affecting Norway. The oil price is unpredictable. I think I've been in forecasting business for many years, and it's one thing which is we all make wrong forecasts about, that is oil price. And that is because oil price is not only pure economics in the sense that it depends on what the business does do on the supply side and on the demand side, but it also depends on a lot of politics, extremely much politics in it, and as we all know, politics is sometimes unpredictable. So we had a period since early 2000 where the oil price stayed quite low, and then it increased to more than $100 a barrel. I think if you look back to 2002 or 2001, no one in the faintest fantasy could imagine that the oil price could go up to $100 a barrel, and that the world still would continue to function quite well. The price came down now because of many reasons, but because there were some new development on the supply side with the new oil fields from in the US, shale oil in the US, and also because of a slower increase in demand from China. China was the driving force behind the increase in oil price, the high demand because of strong growth in China. And it's always like this, that when prices get extreme high, profits get extreme high, it will not last forever, because high profits are attracting new supplies, and high profits and high prices also is reducing demand for their product, and then gradually things change and the prices come down again. And that is what's happening, to put it in nutshell. But it affects Norway through mainly in the private sector. That is the oil investments, the wage growth are being lowered. Still we have wage growth, and still there are growth in households' really disposable income, but it's much lower than it was. And while the effect of the government is much more limited because of the structure we have in Norway with the sovereign wealth fund, which I'll come back to. But let me first try to say something which could also be of interest for Russian here. What can we expect from the oil market going forward? I said to predict the oil price is extremely hard, but there are some changes in the oil market which we should be very much aware of, implying that the oil price of $100 or something a barrel will probably not be a natural scenario going forward. It might happen again, but probably for a short period. First of all, we have the shale oil production in the US, which increased strongly within very few years, and which have the characteristics that it's a very quick reaction. From the day you decide to, now I want to produce more oil, to de facto is producing oil, it takes weeks or months, not years, as with traditional oil fields. Secondly, these fields also usually last for quite a short time. That means that the flexibility on the supply side, short-term flexibility, is much bigger now than it was previously. So we saw during the spring, when the oil price was came up at 65 barrels a day, then the production in the US started to increase again. So it seems that every time when the oil price is above $60 or $65, the US producers will come in again and start producing. And that will keep a ceiling on the oil price at least for some time. And when the oil price is now down at $45, $50, then the production in the US is declining. So it's a very quick reaction on the supply side, which is a complete new situation. The second thing which will affect oil price going forward is the agreement with Iran, which probably will lead to a lift of sanctions vis-à-vis Iran. And they will then probably increase production of oil. They could do increase production by some 600,000-700,000 barrels a day within a year or something. And then after some years, they can probably increase production even more. And what we know is that the cooperation between Saudi Arabia and Iran, to put it mildly, is not very good. So to foresee that Saudi Arabia will hold back on production to allow production in Iran to increase is not very likely. Implying that you could really easily see some kind of fighting, market share fighting between Saudi Arabia and Iran when you look at a year or two ahead, which will then put the pressure down on oil price. So I think, as we can see now, the oil price will probably stay fairly low for some years. It could happen, of course, some incident in the Middle East, which is a very unstable area, which could reduce the supply. But unless that happens, I think the oil price will stay fairly low for some time. That is maybe vary between $40 a barrel and maybe $70 a barrel. What we have seen also over the last year is that because of the high oil price, the demand for oil has increased, but the supply has increased more. So with the low oil price, we should have seen the supply go down, but the supply is still increasing, probably reflect that many producers still have a fair profit on the production of oil, because the costs in many regions are lower than the oil price is. So especially in the OPEC region, they have increased more. We have an important OPEC meeting on Friday, probably not result in anything. It was a OPEC meeting last year, I think it was in November, December last year, which resulted in this that OPEC and Saudi Arabia did not want to keep up the prices anymore, and that strategy will probably continue now. They will not go into the role of acting as a cartel again, probably not. Because they know that if they now try to limit the production, to increase the price, then the US producers will come in again, and the price will fall down again. So it's difficult for OPEC to act as a cartel as it did previously. Okay, for Norway, we have a situation where the oil price led to what we call a strong increase in terms of trade. That is, that our export goods increased the price of them, increased much more than the price of imports, implying that we got richer without producing anything more goods. As business people, we all know that the good thing is to sell expensive and buy cheap, and that's what we have been doing. We imported cheap goods, and were able then to export oil at a high price, and that made a big profit, which led to a lot of investments activity in the oil sector, and also raised the wage level and the wealth of the society. The oil and gas production in Norway has actually peaked. It peaked already in 2002, about that, and declined. But despite of that, the investments in the sector increased tremendously during the period when the oil prices were high. It created a lot of activity in the manufacturing sector, in the service sector, in the shipping sector, and made a boom in the Norwegian economy. With a lower oil price, the investment is coming down by 20% or maybe 25% if you look a couple of years ahead. The growth in Norway was very strong compared with most Western countries. We had the strongest growth from 2000 compared with Sweden, US, UK, and the Eurozone actually. So we were actually booming as an economy because of the high oil price, because of this investment boom in the oil sector, and many of the investment goods and equipment was produced in Norway by the Norwegian manufacturing sector, by the Norwegian design, by the Norwegian engineers, etc. And of course it also led to higher wage growth, which then led to high consumption in private sector. What we see now is that, as I said, the investments is coming down, and we expect it to come down both next year and also 2017. This graph here indicates the size of the petroleum investments compared with the total economy. At the top, the investments in the oil sector was about the size as all investments in all other industries in Norway. So it's a significant part of the economy, and about 60% of the content of the investments are produced in Norway. The rest is imported. So with the oil price, with the oil investments coming down, it has a drag on the economy, reducing the growth and have a dampening effect on the economy, leading also to somewhat increase in the unemployment rate. And we see it also in the manufacturing sector. The Norwegian manufacturing sector, especially production of machineries, equipment, and ships and platforms, boomed from 2004, more than doubled. And the production rate is now declining because of the reduction in the investments. So part of that industry has now difficult periods, while the rest of the industry is more stable. So it has been a major change in the cycle for the Norwegian manufacturing sector. What we see also, which is that it affects the consumers. As I mentioned, the oil price decline leads to lower wage growth. The income of households is still growing, but at a lower rate. So private consumption is not increasing so strongly as it did, and the consumers are getting more nervous. That is measured by what we call consumer confidence surveys, a survey made each quarter, where consumers are asked what they think about the Norwegian economy, what they think about their own economy, if they think it's a good time to make large purchases, and questions like that. And the consumer confidence has declined strongly. Actually, it's now at very low level compared with historical levels, indicating that it could be that consumers may be afraid to commit themselves to buy houses, new cars, etc., which then will have a more negative effect on the economy. So this is really something which could mean that the spillover from the oil sector will be more wider, in the sense that it also affects the consumers more in a more wider sense. Still, there's a growth in private consumption, around 2% or 1.5–2%, and we still expect that to happen. But it is a risk that the consumption side could become weaker. What is special with the Norwegian Norway as a oil producer compared with most other countries, I would say all other countries, is that we have this sovereign wealth fund. Implying that the government's income from the oil sector was channeled into a fund, and the fund is invested abroad in stocks, in bonds, in real estate. And the size of the fund is about 2.5 times the size of the total economy, if you look at the mainland economy. In dollar terms, it's $861 billion. So for Norway, it's a huge fund, the system we have is that the government are using the real return from the fund in the budget. So the tax coming from the oil sector is not going directly into the budget, it is going to this fund, and the fund is invested, and the return from the fund is used in the budget. So that implies that when the tax income from the oil sector is reduced, it do not affect the budget so strongly immediately. It takes some years before we feel it, because it will affect the increase in the fund going forward, but it will not affect the income of the government immediately. So that has the consequence that the public budgets are still growing strongly. The income of the government is contributing to stabilizing the economy, which is a quite different situation from most other oil producers. So our politicians were wise to set up this oil fund, and they have also been very disciplined in having this oil fund for years and been able to build it up like this. So one stabilizing factor is this oil fund. Another stabilizing factor is the interest rate, and the third one is the exchange rate. The Norwegian bank, the central bank, has lowered the interest rate. We are not at zero yet, as most of the other European countries or most Western countries. We expect the interest rate to come down further, at least once more, and maybe also twice more, and getting closer to zero. That implies that it will be cheaper to get loans and contributing to keeping the economy growing. But more important is the weakening of the exchange rate. The euro has become much more expensive. The normal price of euro in Norwegian krone was usually around 8 kroner. Now it's at 9.20, 9.50. So it's a very strong weakening of the krone, which is good for the export sector. Which is also good for companies in Norway competing with imports. So this is contributing to restructuring of the economy, where we see that with weaker oil sector, traditional, what we call traditional export, that is export excluding oil, is now growing quite decently. Tourist industry is also growing quite decently. So because of this change in the relative price coming through this weaker krone. Norway is expensive country. We still is, but the cost level compared with other competitors has come down. This shows the development in the labor cost in Norway compared with our trading partners. Our cost level increased tremendously during the boom years with a high oil price, but has now come down because of the weakening of the krona. So we are now returned back to a level where we had the cost level we had around 2002. We were still not very cheap at that time, but at least we have come back to a level which is more decent than it was. So to keep the currency weak, I think is very important, and most businesses I talk with would like to have that to continue. But the exchange rate is decided by the market and not by the government or the central bank. And by lowering the interest rate, it also stimulates a still weakening krona. So Norway is also a very flexible economy, even if we are organized, heavily organized. We think we are very bureaucratic, but if you look at World Bank's report on easiness to the business, Norway ranks very high as a country where it's quite easy to do the business. We are number 9, and all the Nordic countries are quite high up, and much higher than, for instance, the Euro area countries. So that means that with more competitive sector, with lower labor costs, weaker krona, the restructuring it takes place quite easily, so to speak, or it's quite easy to do that when you have the right environment to change the business. So I'm quite confident that the Norwegian businesses will be able to adapt to the new situation with a lower oil price. And what I also heard from people working in the oil sector is that they're not giving up at all. They are more focusing on how could we now find ways to extract and search for oil at lower cost. So they're also changing the way they're doing setting up the exploration of oil. So we have not had any recession, and we don't expect any recession. But a weak growth totally in the economy. A growth rate around close to 1% in this year, and about the same level next year. And probably growth in GDP will go up again in 2017. So it's not a catastrophe for the economy, but we're coming from a boom. With extremely high growth rates, and now as a lower growth rate, and it feels as a change to experience that. But it's the economy is gradually adapting to it. The unemployment is increasing, but the unemployment in Norway is very low still compared with most other countries. We are close. The US and UK are coming down, and Norway is going up, so we're now close to each other, but still the unemployment rate is very low compared with neighbors like Sweden and Germany and also like France. And that reflects that we have still growth in the economy, but it also reflects that it was very many vacant positions in all the industries that engineers and people from the oil sector were able to go into when the oil sector companies had to reduce the staff. And we also see a decline in net immigration, labor immigration. We of course have a special situation with refugees now, but the net immigration has come down actually from 45,000 a year to now about 30,000 a year, reflecting that people are not coming into Norway so much as before to seek job because it's hard to get job in Norway, and that also implies that the unemployment rate will not increase so much as it otherwise would have been doing, because it affects possible future potential employees in other countries and also not only in Norway. So, in total, the ban here, I think it's we feel the decline in oil price, but it's not a catastrophe. The economy is adapting, the currency is weak, other businesses are happy with that, and in the oil sector, the focus is to lower costs to be able to operate within a new environment with lower oil price. And I think also we have to probably live with low oil price for some years, unless there will be some big accident in the Middle East, which easily could happen, but which is rather unpredictable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions to Mr. Juel? Then you are free to post them now, because we have still time. Not the best prognosis, but I read this morning, I think, that some of your colleagues, experts, are estimating employment rate in Norway of 8% within, by the end of next year, or was it beginning of the following year, 2017? And criticizing then, of course, also the government for not coming up with the incentives for the broader employment. What is your comment and view on that? Should there be done more at the present stage?
No, I think they are doing what they should, and the public budget is very expansionary, so they are increasing the expenditure quite tremendously compared with previous years, because they can do that because of the oil fund. And as I said, what is most important is that we are able to keep the exchange rate low. And if the government was about to increase the expenditure even more, the risk would have been that the exchange rate would be stronger, because the Norwegian bank then might say that I will not cut rates, and we might even increase rates again. And that will have a strengthening of the krona, which would be a big disaster. So I think the mixture here is. I wouldn't recommend that the government should really throw out more money. That's throwing out too much already.
Expected that answer, yes. Okay, our Prime Minister is also saying from særstilling to omstilling, from a special condition to transformation, meaning we have become too dependent, as you have shown, on our oil and gas economy. What is your review or take on that one? Are they on the right track?
Yes, I think we're on the right track, because we see it that other businesses are expanding. It's much easier for other businesses also to get engineers which they need. Up to now, or in the booming years, all the engineers we had went into the oil sector and became extremely expensive, and so expensive that other businesses were able to meet their salaries. Now that has changed, so that makes it easier for other businesses to increase. And as I mentioned, we see that the non-oil export is growing quite decently, has picked up actually, in a situation where world growth in trade has stagnated actually. And I also was early this fall, I was in 2 places in Norway which are quite different. I was in Steinar, the capital of oil. There, of course, the mood was not very high. People were depressed, and there was pessimism. And then I was at Lillehammer, a typical tourist inland resort, and they were optimistic because now the tourists were coming. So it's very large differences within Norway. It's the southwest coast, partly also the northwest coast, which is hard to hit. but especially the southern part of the west coast, while the inland country is quite doing well.
Here we're getting more questions.
I got one question. I mean, thank you very much for the excellent presentation. We understand one graph that is missing. There are a lot of students. It would be nice to understand what money is the Norwegian government investing in future students and their education. To me, this is essential because if you have education, people will have a job and then pay tax and return back to the system. So, I mean, any ideas? I'm not expecting exact figures, but what is actually the Norwegian government investing in the future of the young generation?
I don't have the numbers, but it's if I now had been a representative of the government, I would have told you that we are giving more money to education than the previous government, and they have some graphs indicating that. So they have tried to increase the money on the budget to research and to education. So that is one that and the infrastructure has been two of the priorities of the government.
And you have one representative, councillor at the embassy.
Yes, I don't have the exact figures, but from last year to this year, there has been a real term growth in investment in research of 4.3%, which is quite a high figure. And this is the fourth year in a row where we have had a real term increase. And one good indication is that the higher education and research sector themselves have said that they are quite happy with the budget. That means that the budget is really good.
Okay, then we had one question over here, I think.
We know that 50% of the Norwegian economy is oil and gas industry, the same thing in Russia. In Russia we have a decrease in our GDP minus 5% in official statistics, maybe more in real life. How is it possible that the Norwegian economy has a growth last 1%? It is unbelievable. I don't understand.
Yes. I think the oil and gas sector is 1/4 of the total economy, and 50% of the export. So I think that I agree with you. In many ways, we have been avoided a catastrophe. We have avoided a much stronger decline than other countries would have experienced. I think that part of the story is the sovereign wealth fund. That the government finances are not directly hit. So actually the government's expenditure is increasing to compensate for a weaker situation in the private sector. So I think that is one important aspect of it. If the government also had to cut down on expenditure, it would have been a completely different issue.
Okay, I have one final one myself, I think, and that's, oil. Anyway, for many years, they say, will be the main business sector in Norway, and it's moving northwards. And up north in northern Norway, they are hoping and waiting for better prices and further development. You expect that to take place, this development of our mineral resources offshore, up north, in the Barents Sea, and in the former disputed area, which we agree about.
I think it's still it has been delayed and will probably be delayed some more. But at least the people in the engineering sector working on different solutions there, they are talking about that they now are coming up with concepts for exploration and extraction over here, which have much more cost than we previously thought. And the oil price will probably come within 5 years' time or something, come a little bit further up. So with the cost and more innovation on the engineering side and also on a little higher prices, I think there will be possibilities. But it will take some years before that happens, probably.
Okay, thank you, Steinar Juel. Here, Steinar Juel will be together with us also this afternoon in the embassy, and please talk with him on a bilateral level. Now